Okay, evening, morning, good afternoon, global population, Sam Fisher here. Right, just been watching UK column, so I highly recommend everyone does. All of you from the UK, even you from the US. It's very eye opening. But you're going to go play, go on then. But got a little bit of information, which is very helpful.
Wherever possible, we will hold votes before such regulations come into force. But of course, responding to the virus means that the government must act with speed when required, and we cannot hold up urgent regulations which are needed to control the virus and save lives. And we'll continue to involve the House in scrutinising our decisions in the way my right honourable friend the Prime Minister set out last week, with regular statements and debates, and the ability for members to question the government's scientific advisers more regularly, gain access to data about their constituencies, and join daily calls with my right honourable friend the Paymaster General. When creating the Act, we included provisions to modify mental health legislation to reduce from 2 to 1 the number of doctors' opinions needed to detain someone under the Mental Health Act, and to extend legal time limits to the detention of mental health patients. These were always powers of last resort, and I was not persuaded, even in the peak, that they were necessary, because our mental health services have shown incredible resilience and ingenuity. So I've decided that these powers are no longer required in England and will not remain part of the Act, and will bring forward shortly the necessary secondary legislation to sunset these provisions.
We've recognised that the government, in a pandemic, any government, needs extraordinary powers available, and why with a heavy heart today, and facing this highly unsatisfactory situation of an all or nothing motion, we will not be blocking its passage today. We have supported the government when it's right to do so, and the British people who've sacrificed so much in the national effort to address this virus deserve nothing less. But today, we say to the government that things cannot go on as they are. The road ahead is anything but clear. Our testing system is inadequate at the very moment we need it most, and this is having a devastating impact. Losing control of testing means losing control of the virus, and it's that loss of control which makes further restrictions necessary. And it's restrictions that are having a devastating effect on families and businesses up and down the country. This dire situation was not inevitable. It is the result of a chronic...
So that clip was from the vote that was done to renew the Corona Act in Parliament. You notice there was only about 60 at best MPs that were in there. Not very many at all. Yeah. Ended up with well over 100, probably 200 Conservative votes. Now, I, like many others, assume that that was just because they had absentee ballots, which is something they've had for a very long time. Turns out that's wrong. What? Oh, good for him. Turns out that's not true. You see, this next clip, I'll explain why.
I was very interested to see that First of all, there was a notice on They Work For You about COVID-19. Let's have a look at, see what it says. As a result of COVID-19, some MPs have been less able to vote in Parliament, and this will be reflected in their voting record. So just highlight this bit here, the 2nd to the 9th of June 2020. And what does it say? It says the option of online voting was removed and a number of MPs may have been unable to vote because they were not physically able to attend. So that is a complete destruction of the democratic process.
So, what you've just seen there is something on the Lord Chanty's page on the Parliamentary MP website, and what that said was that there is online voting has basically been withdrawn, so MPs can't vote online, but also that they may not be able to attend. What? They may not be able to attend to vote. So that opens up a few questions. Mainly, there wasn't a full complement of MPs in Parliament that day when they renewed the Corona Act. The MPs that weren't there were basically notable from their absence. It's just unprecedented. There was nobody there for such an important vote. Yeah, they got almost a full house, in a way, of Conservative MPs' votes. Where were they? Who voted for them? How did they get those votes? And why were they absent? It honestly beggars belief how corrupt our system is. I've been saying this for years. We're not under parliamentary control, or rather our Parliament is not in control of our government. In fact, our government isn't even in control of our government. And this just proves it even more. Ever since we joined the EU, we haven't been in control of our government. I don't care what you think, you pro-EU people, you're full of shit. We need the removal of our government with immediate effect, and the implementation and installation of a fully compliant with the public government. Unfortunately, we don't have MPs that are trustworthy enough by any stretch of the mark, and that's alarming. We are fully within a dictatorship, and a world dictatorship. How we get out of that? That's a problem. How do we get out of that? We have representation that doesn't represent us. We have leaders that don't lead us. And we have a power seemingly beyond our control that's trying to take over. And all the while, they obfuscate, cover, shield those very elements that have been trying to take control. And it's all through cowardice. Most of them blackmailed, cajoled, coerced into passing laws and acts that benefit those in control. And the majority of us sit back and let it slide. Why do they let it slide? You can't see it coming. That simple. But then when you can't see the signs of what's to come, when you've never been told what they are and what they lead to, what chance do you have? That's the situation we find ourselves in. Mostly to do with our education system, whose teaching of history relies on the Industrial Revolution, cotton mills and cotton industry, and that's about it. And when they do touch on wars like World War I and World War II, they don't focus on anything to do with the build-up. Anything to do with those wheels in motion that eventually cause those wars. They focus on the people, which is nice enough, fair enough. Got a big part to play, but in the grand scheme of things, huh.
We're just going over there.
Alright, okay. In the grand scheme of things, you need that information to have any sort of chance of being able to stop it. This is why.
Please can you stay here a bit longer than I can?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
We'll be back. We'll be back, though.
Anyway, like, share, subscribe. You know the drill. See you later.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything. Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant, it's just that they know so much that isn't so. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a left or right. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down. Man's old age dream, the ultimate in individual freedom consistent with law and order, or down to the ant-heap of totalitarianism. And regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives, those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. In this vote harvesting time, they use terms like the Great Society, or as we were told a few days ago by the President, we must accept a greater government activity in the affairs of the people. But they've been a little more explicit in the past, and among themselves, and all of the things I now will quote have appeared in print. These are not Republican accusations. For example, they have voices that say the Cold War will end through our acceptance of a not undemocratic socialism. Another voice says the profit motive has become outmoded. It must be replaced by the incentives of the welfare state. Or our traditional system of individual freedom is incapable of solving the complex problems of the 20th century. Senator Fulbright has said at Stanford University that the Constitution is outmoded. He referred to the President as our moral teacher and our leader, and he says he is hobbled in his task by the restrictions of power imposed on him by this antiquated document. He must be freed so that he can do for us what he knows is best. And Senator Clark of Pennsylvania, another articulate spokesman, defines liberalism as meeting the material needs of the masses through the full power of centralized government. Well, I, for one, resent it when a representative of the people refers to you and me, the free men and women of this country, as the masses. This is a term we haven't applied to ourselves in America. But beyond that, the full power of centralized government, this was the very thing the Founding Fathers sought to minimize. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people. And they know when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose. They also knew, those Founding Fathers, that outside of its legitimate functions, government does nothing as well or as economically as the private sector of the economy. Trouble. And that is the issue of this campaign that makes all the other problems I've discussed academic, unless we realize we're in a war that must be won. Those who would trade our freedom for the soup kitchen of the welfare state have told us they have a utopian solution of peace without victory. They call their policy accommodation. And they say if we'll only avoid any direct confrontation with the enemy, he'll forget his evil ways and learn to love us. All who oppose them are indicted as warmongers. They say we offer simple answers to complex problems. Well, perhaps there is a simple answer. Not an easy answer, but simple. If you and I have the courage to tell our elected officials that we want our national policy based on what we know in our hearts is morally right, we cannot buy our security, our freedom from the threat of the bomb, by committing an immorality so great as saying to 1 billion human beings now enslaved behind the Iron Curtain, give up your dreams of freedom, because to save our own skins, we're willing to make a deal with your slave masters. Alexander Hamilton said, a nation which can prefer disgrace to danger is prepared for a master and deserves one. Now let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second: surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? Well, Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better read than dead. Or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. And our honored dead, who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis, didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance. This is the meaning, in the phrase of Barry Goldwater, peace through strength. Winston Churchill said the destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn we're spirits, not animals. And he said there's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty, our own destiny. Thank you very much.